Every time I think about this case, I get angry. That could have been any one of us.
We refer to Roswell as the ultimate cold case file.
I came down here with the attitude that we'd spend a couple of days down and get to the bottom of it, and that would be the end of it.
We were wrong.
It was broad daylight in a well-traveled area. Nobody saw anything.
Why now? Why Kate?
When I was around the age of 7, I started to hear things.
Spirits of the dead are something that should not be trusted at all.
There's still things that we can do. There's still investigative tracks we can follow.
When you start talking about mutilations, it's a mystery. I have no way to explain it.
Someone knows what happened. It's not over.
That was the trailer for the 5th volume of the Netflix docu-series Unsolved Mysteries, releasing on October 2nd. And this is Factual America. I'm your host, Matthew Sherwood. Each week I watch a hit documentary and then talk with the filmmakers and their subjects. Today we will be discussing unsolved murders, paranormal activity, unexplained phenomenon, and UFOs. Who better to join us than multiple Emmy-nominated filmmaker Terry Dunn Meurer, the co-creator and producer of Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries is the iconic docuseries that started it all. A staple of TV in the 1980s and 90s, for its many fans it has always remained relevant. It has enjoyed a resurgence in the 2020s as a new generation rekindles an interest in cold cases and the paranormal. Terry discusses the secrets of Unsolved Mysteries' success and longevity. We also talk about the fascination with true crime and its status as the hottest thing on television. Stay tuned. Terry Dunn Meurer, welcome to Factual America. How are things with you?
Oh, just fine, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So to remind our viewers and listeners, we're talking about that staple of TV in the 80s and 90s, and again, and certainly now in the 2020s, Unsolved Mysteries. Volume 5 is dropping on Netflix on October 2nd. So Terry, it's great to have you on. As I said, Volume 5 is releasing. Maybe tell us a little bit about the slate for the coming season and what viewers can expect to see.
Well, in the episodes that are dropping on October 2nd, we have 4 episodes. One is a true crime episode. Actually, 2 are true crime episodes, but one's a little bit unusual. And we have 2 paranormal episodes. The true crime episode, one of them is kind of a very frightening case. It's a double homicide that took place in broad daylight in a beautiful, beautiful park in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland, Ohio. Just 2 people sitting on a park bench. They had just met. They're just friends. And somebody came up and shot both of them execution style. No motive, no idea who could have done this, no suspects. And law enforcement is looking for leads in that case. It's very bizarre. It was broad daylight. People with baby strollers around, and nobody saw or heard anything, or at least they're not coming forward.
Yeah. Well, that was, well, go ahead. I'll let you carry on.
No, it's just, then our other kind of unusual true crime case is about cattle mutilations. It's called mysterious mutilations. And this is a phenomenon that's been going on for decades around the country in different states. Started off, people started to recognize it in the 60s in Colorado. And there's been a wave of cattle mutilations in Eastern Oregon. And people think, well, cattle mutilations, what's the big deal? But these are crimes, and the ranchers who live in these areas are devastated. This is their livelihood, and these cows are not just being killed; they're being killed, but they're being mutilated. Certain body parts are being taken off of these cows, and nobody knows what these body parts are being used for. No one knows who is doing this. I've produced a lot of Unsolved Mysteries episodes over the years, like at least 1,300 episodes, I guess. And I will say that this cattle mutilations episode is the strangest case and the most unexplainable case that I've ever seen. It makes me think the only rational, it sounds crazy, only rational explanation for this is UFOs.
Exactly.
And for me to say that is a lot, but I don't have. That's the best explanation. So it's really, really a fascinating mystery.
If I can jump in there, I mean, I will say, maybe it's because I'm originally from Texas, but I did find it, oddly enough, the most interesting for me personally. I mean, it's, as you say, I hadn't realized, but you tapped into something that I guess is certainly more than a meme. I mean, amongst ranchers, everyone trades stories about, people, oh, you've been lucky, you haven't had one of these mutilated cows. And, and it's, as you say, it's been going on since at least the 60s or 70s. It is, I mean, I think that one graphic you've got with the map showing where it's happening and the circles get bigger as you have more and more cases of it. It's quite mind-blowing, really.
It really is. It really is. And who could be doing it? It's not one individual that's doing this. It's across decades. And it's not necessarily one cult. It's in different states. Yeah. Just while we were actually producing the episode, there were some mutilations that happened in Texas.
Right.
Outside of Houston. And nobody, law enforcement doesn't really want to talk about it. The ranchers don't want to talk about it. We were very happy that some of the ranchers were willing to come forward and do interviews with us about this, because they kind of they just don't want to talk about it. They want to be left alone, but it's become an issue for them. So that is one of our more intriguing episodes, I think.
Yeah.
We have another episode is called Paranormal Partners. This is also an unusual episode. We always try to give the audience a little bit something different that they're not expecting. This is about a gentleman, a paranormal investigator from England, who has taken on a paranormal partner named Becky, who helps him in his paranormal investigations. And it stretches the imagination a bit, I would say. When we first met Don Phillips, we were like, oh, is this really happening? But a big part of the story is this other very reputable paranormal investigator named Steve Meurer, who initially met Don, didn't believe anything that was going on with Don, and then slowly, through investigating and through putting Don through some tests, actually came to believe that Don, it really is communicating with this spirit. Don is careful. He doesn't know what to exactly call it. I don't know if it's a spirit or a spirit guide. But Becky is with him all the time, and Becky speaks to him. And Becky actually, we heard the other day that Becky has seen the episode, even though it hasn't launched yet, and she really likes it.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
It was good to know that Becky has signed off. We wanted to make Becky proud. So that's and then we're doing then the fourth episode is a kind of an update to Roswell, the Roswell UFO case. That we produced an episode on that in the Vintage series, and since then. There's been so many witnesses who've come forward who at the time were afraid to come forward and because of the threats of the military. And they finally, a lot of these are deathbed confessions almost, where they just say, you know what, I wanted to say this and I haven't felt like I could. And so we wanted to present all these witnesses who back up what happened in Roswell back in the day. So that's an update of an older episode, but we think the audience will love to hear from all those witnesses.
I mean, I wanted to ask you about that. This one must be dear to your heart, I would have thought, because you helped break the story to a degree. I mean, you do make reference to In Search Of, which I really appreciated, because as a little kid, I watched it religiously. But you really helped break the story, and now you're coming back to it. And not only are these more witnesses have come out, I mean, think about all the stuff that's been in the news over the last few years, and congressional testimonies, and even President Obama saying things about UFOs and stuff. So it's really what seemed maybe a bit out there, even when I think George Stagg was originally presenting it, now seems, I wouldn't say mainstream, but it's certainly gaining more and more traction, isn't it?
I think so. I think people now there's more people who are believing that there's something out there and that there are UFOs, and it might be interesting for them to see what happened at Roswell and see, get more of the details, because I don't think Roswell's been focused. There hasn't been a focus on Roswell in a long time, but now with this new lens of all the new sightings, I think it's interesting to see where we've come.
Yeah. And then one thing I noticed as well, go back to the first one, which is the park bench murders, and the true crime one that you led with that takes place in Cleveland, which is remarkable. It's one of these, I did actually go back and watch some other volumes, and, it seems to be this common, these true crime docs where you just like, no one sees anything. How did this how does this happen? But you've got, I noticed you have Skye Borgman directing. And so she's well known for many, of course, but recently, I guess she did Girl in the Picture. We had her on for that. Is that something that I know you've had your kind of stable of directors and filmmakers, but is this her first one for Unsolved Mysteries?
No, Skye, from season one, I think Skye directed 2 this season. When I say season, we launched 5 episodes in July, and now we're launching 4 in October.
Right.
So out of those 9, Skye directed 2.
Okay.
And she directed Park Bench, and then 1 in the previous batch.
Right.
But she's directed, I'm going to say, 2 episodes per season for us. So she was.
Oh wow.
She was there
okay.
season 1. I know she's so busy with all of the other documentaries she's producing. We're always thrilled when she's available to do an Unsolved Mysteries episode. And I think she enjoys them. A lot of the cases that she tackles are already adjudicated, they're solved, and I think she finds these intriguing. But you can ask her about that. But she's great to work with. We love working with Skye.
Well, she was great to have on. I thought she was, very compelling and very, very, very innovative and interesting filmmaker. And
very passionate about everything she does.
Exactly.
She really, she just is wonderful to work with.
Okay. We're actually going to take an early break, a little earlier than we usually do, but I'm going to let our listeners and viewers have a break. We'll be right back with Terry Dunn Meurer, the award-winning producer and co-creator of the legendary series Unsolved Mysteries. Volume 5 of which is, I guess, the second batch from this season on Netflix is releasing on October 2nd. You're listening to Factual America. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or X to keep up to date with new releases or upcoming shows. Check out the show notes to learn more about the program, our guests, and the team behind the production. Now back to Factual America. Welcome back to Factual America. I'm here with Terry Dunn Meurer, the producer and co-creator of the series Unsolved Mysteries. Volume 5 of the Netflix edition is releasing on October 2nd. That's 4 episodes, which if you've gotten to this far, you've heard a decent amount about them. We won't say too much more about them. Go watch them. It's well worth your while. I just wanted to maybe just talk to you, since we have this opportunity to have you on, talk a bit more about the series itself and the franchise, if you will. I mean, you've had this amazing run that goes all the way back to the late 80s. I mean, how did this all start? We've been working on Unsolved Mysteries and producing episodes for over 35 years. I guess the genesis was a documentary that I produced for HBO America Undercover about missing adults and missing children. And the Missing Adults show actually located someone who had set up his disappearance and had fled. And that made everyone go, oh, maybe we can use the media to find people, because it was as the result of the show that happened. So from there, we did 3 specials for NBC about missing people, missing children, and missing adults. And then Brandon Tartikoff, who was the executive at the time at wonderful man at NBC, he said, I think there might be a bigger thing here. Why don't you guys go see what you can figure out? So we came in and we basically took every single kind of mystery that exists and put it, kind of put it out there. And that's the variety of the
stories that we present that I think is what's kept the series alive and going for so many years, because in especially in the vintage episodes, we would do 10-minute stories, and we could watch a true crime story, and then 10 minutes later you could watch a UFO story, and 10 minutes later a science mystery kind of story. So I think the variety has always been something that is appealing to the audience, and I think at the very beginning we were thinking, well, are people going to want to sit and watch in an hour, watch 4 cases that aren't solved? How frustrating is that? But we realized that then when cases started getting solved, then people would come back for the updates, and we would always update the stories as quickly as we could. Okay. So we realized that there was really something there, and I think the audience loved the idea that these cases were getting solved. It was very interactive. It was one of the first interactive, I think, TV shows that exist, in terms of the true crime space. Yeah. Especially, you're not going to solve the paranormal cases; those were more just mysteries. Right. But over the years, oh my gosh, I think it's 260 cases have been solved, not as the result of our work. I mean, we cases out there, but DNA, since we began, DNA has become a big factor in the world in solving cases, and so a lot of cases have gotten solved by DNA hits.
Well, that's amazing, because you've got just over 600 episodes, I think, at the moment, and to have nearly half become solved. I mean, I know this still means half haven't been, but still, that's probably a lot of those, as you say, a lot of those episodes would be the paranormal, so you're not going to be solving those anyway, right? So,
right. It's, I think, 25% of all the solvable cases that have been solved.
Okay.
And they're still getting solved, mostly by DNA hits. There was a case that and we love this. It's after 35 years, the excitement of hearing that a case was solved doesn't wane at all. There was a case that was just solved, this fugitive that had been on the run, and he was just captured about 3 weeks ago. It was from one of the older cases.
Yeah. I mean, is it fair to say, I know you had 80s and 90s and NBC and then CBS, and then you had some various reboots in the 2000s, but now you're on Netflix in the 2020s. Is it fair to say that you've had a resurgence in interest in the show, and that certainly true crime and all these kind of things, paranormal, they're sort of definitely the rage in the industry now. Why do you think that is?
People, well, I think our show is a little bit different. Ours is a mystery show. We're not telling stories that have already been adjudicated or that are solved. Yeah, I think there's an appeal to that. What we're finding is that it's Unsolved Mysteries is now popular among multiple generations. Even, teenagers and kids in their 20s, they know the show and they're very aware of it, and a lot of them have gone back and watched the old episodes. So the repeatability of Unsolved Mysteries has always I always say it's its own mystery. That people just those episodes seem to hold up, and people just want to watch them over and over again. Yeah. Those are the vintage shows, and we're finding that with Netflix as well. People will go back. So we're launching these episodes on Wednesday, the new ones, and they'll go, oh, maybe I'll go back and look at some of the previous episodes as well. So there's just something really intriguing about mysteries for an audience, and the true crime cases, but also the paranormal.
And I think, do you feel like Unsolved Mysteries has played a big part in what's this, this proliferation? I know true crime, as you said, true crime's different, but in terms of, the popularity of these types of shows.
Sorry, what was
well, do you think Unsolved Mysteries, your series, it played a major part? You kind of set the stage, didn't you, for what we have now?
Yeah, I think Unsolved Mysteries was one of the first, unscripted reality shows of its kind. Certainly interactive. And from there, that was 35 years ago. We've just seen the true crime genre rise in popularity. Even scripted shows, the new scripted shows about actual cases, and those become very popular as well. I don't know what it is, honestly, about about what it is that attracts people to this genre, but it doesn't seem to be waning. I think there's more of an appetite than ever for that.
And as you said, so just to be clear, you've got, I did notice you got these vintage episodes. Where's the best place for people to watch those? Is that the YouTube channel?
Oh gosh, they're on Tubi, they're on YouTube, they're everywhere.
Yeah, but it's interesting, is it? Because there's also this '90s nostalgia, isn't there? And there's also, I mean, I think I can watch pretty much every NFL football game from the '90s if I wanted to. I can find it on YouTube. So it's like, not that I've tried, but I mean, it's like, there's something comforting, because I do think people, I've even seen people, but even before I knew you were going to have you on, social media posts and things, people saying, it was great when you'd see that you knew George Stack was going to be showing up, to present Unsolved Mysteries. There was something there about it, so omnipresent in our culture.
Yeah, and maybe it's because it was the first. A lot of times it's the first that kind of has the staying power. I think it was the music. People commented on the music and Bob Stack's voice, and it was so creepy. And they remember, a lot of people remember it in their childhood. Kind of sneak watching it because their parents weren't allowing them to do it. It's just become an iconic series. I mean, over the years, it still gets parodied. It was on Saturday Night Live and
right.
and I guess it's a kind of a homage to the series that people still use it in that way. It's just I think maybe it's because it was the first.
Yeah.
That I think people still come back and watch it. They remember it from their childhood. And on NBC, we were on for 11 seasons.
Yeah.
That was a long time. And at the time, there were only, if you think about it, there were only 4 networks with Fox coming along.
Yeah.
But there wasn't the amount of content that there is now, the choices for sure. So a lot of people watched it. Millions and millions of people watched the show back in the day.
Yeah, and apologies. I think I keep referring to him as George Stack. It's obviously Bob Stack, so my apologies to you. And how long can this continue? I mean, you've got 35 years now. You're going to carry on. I assume is there volume 6 on the way? I mean, how's it looking?
We hope there's a volume 6 on the way. I guess the sad news really is that there are still mysteries and there are still crimes that are happening out there, and those stories need to be told, and not just the ones that are current, but there's so many cases that have just gone cold, and that's where Unsolved Mysteries comes in. I think that's where we do our best work, is finding these smaller cases in small towns where there's no more leads coming in, but the families are still desperate to have the closure. And those are the stories that we look for to profile, not as much I know we're doing Roswell, and in the last volume we did Jack the Ripper, which is a higher profile case.
Right.
But those are unusual. We really look for more cases like Park Bench, which is nobody's heard about this double homicide in Cleveland, but it's very solvable if just one person can come forward with a lead or a tip. It's just the law enforcement feels that somebody saw something, and we would love to help law enforcement solve that case. We never say we solve the case. We always we put it out there, and our job is to put it out there. And law enforcement is the one that has to solve the case. But we hope we can generate some leads on that. It's those smaller cases that really need a light shined on them to get new leads, to get them solved.
And I guess in this world we're in, we don't have to wait for them to show up on broadcast TV, right? They live a long life. So, I mean, I watched besides this volume, I watched another one, and it was the case about the in Baltimore, the guy fell through the hole in the roof one. Rey Rivera, and that's one that's I assume that one's still not been solved.
That one hasn't been solved. That's one of those. I mean, there's so many stories we've done. That one haunts me. Having stood on that roof.
Oh, wow.
And where he, allegedly jumped from, I was just, there's no way. There's just no way. Yeah. But how did he end up where he did? There's just no way, even if he got a running start. And I'm still in touch with his wife, Allison, who lives here in LA. That is a troubling, very troubling case.
I mean, in speaking of that case, but then more generally, and also trying to be fair to the police, and we often have true crime docs come onto the show. What is it? I mean, there is this. There does, certainly in the cases that you show, and then these other true crime series show, is you definitely it definitely feels like in some cases, some investigators feel like they want to take the easy way. Something, that one is one where they've basically said it's a suicide, although it's not been officially closed. When yet it just seems so obvious that there's no way it could be, right? Your experience, you've been doing this for a while now. I mean, what do you think? What is the mindset? What's getting into law enforcement when we have these sort of cases like this?
I think there's investigators. A lot of the stories we tell are cases we talk about are small town cases, and a lot of times the investigators in those cases, in those towns, are not equipped. They don't have the experience, and they don't have the training to really kind of dig deep into a case. And sometimes they don't even have a detective on the force. And then sometimes there's tunnel vision. Somebody walks in and says suicide, and that's it. And that gets back to the Emmy, and the Emmy medical examiner decides that it's a suicide, and that gets put on the report, and the families are left saying, "What do you mean suicide?" So I think that can happen, but that does happen. In fact, there's a case outside of Boston right now, Sandra Birchmore, who exactly what happened. But there's so many good investigators, so many good law enforcement out there that really do try and keep an open mind and do have the training and just dogged in terms of not wanting to let go. One of the episodes called Body in the Basement from the previous batch that launched in July. It's what we call an unexplained death episode. And this investigator, Dave Sweet, he contacted us. He was about to retire, and he was so high, feeling like he has to do everything he can to solve this case. So maybe getting it on Unsolved Mysteries will help solve it. These investigators often contact us. We had the ATF contact us a couple weeks ago about a case that they really want us to do. So they know we're here, and sometimes the investigators don't want to quite let go of it, but sometimes they know that they need the help, and they join forces and try and solve it.
And I guess, and to be fair to all law enforcement out there, and I just want to make sure I am, let's face it, by its very nature, Unsolved Mysteries or some of these other murder, we'll focus on the ones where things didn't go well, and there's so many that are either pretty cut and dry or they all get solved. That doesn't usually make for good TV or film. So those are the ones. So we are, I guess, talking about a very small percentage of all the crimes committed, but it is.
I think so. We've had a great experience working with all aspects of law enforcement. Local police, county police or county sheriff's departments. FBI, marshals, ATF. We have a good reputation because our focus isn't how well or how poorly was the investigation done. Our focus is let's solve this. And sometimes we do talk to law enforcement agencies, and they're a little bit nervous. They've been burned by the media, and they don't want to necessarily come out again. But we have references. We say, call so-and-so, they were nervous about working with us, and then they did, and they were happy that they did. So we like to think that we're not, our job isn't to judge law enforcement. Our job is to help law enforcement solve these cases.
I think we're going to leave it right there, except to say if someone, I guess you always direct to viewers to, what is it, unsolved.com?
That's right. It used to be viewer mail and a telecenter where people would answer phones, but now we have a website where people can submit tips, and things have changed. Where we can submit tips and thoughts about the cases, and even we just say, even if you think it's the smallest the smallest thought you have that you might have some information, we always ask everyone to just send us the tip. Let's let law enforcement figure it out and see if we can get these cases solved.
Okay. Well, Terry, thank you so much. Just a reminder, listeners and viewers, we've been talking with Terry Dunn Meurer, producer and co-creator of Unsolved Mysteries. Volume 5 releases on Netflix on October 2nd. Do check it out. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to that episode of Factual America. As usual, I want to give a big shout out to Sam and Joe, the lads at InnerSound, who ensure we continue to provide you with the highest quality video and audio recordings. Also, big thanks to you, our viewers and listeners, as we embark on a 6th incredible season. Please keep sending us feedback and episode ideas. You can find Factual America on YouTube, social media, and at our website, factualamerica.com. Please also remember to like us and share us with your friends and family, wherever you happen to listen or watch podcasts. This is Factual America, signing off. You've been listening to Factual America. This podcast is produced by Alamo Pictures, which specializes in documentaries, television, and shorts about the U.S. for international audiences. Head on down to the show notes for more information about today's episode, our guests, and the team behind the podcast. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Be the first to hear about new productions, festivals showing our films, and to connect with our team. Our homepage is factualamerica.com.